Initiating. Okay, I think we're live on air. So hello everybody and welcome to the 6th Open Education Working Group. I'm Marika Guy, I'm coordinator of the group, and I'm here to have a very special session with you today. So it's quite exciting. We've got lots and lots of people in the Google Hangout for you to hear from. So the Open Education Working Group's been established to bring together people and groups interested in innovation. Its goal is to initiate global cross-sector and cross-domain activity that encompasses the various facets of open education. And we're one of a series of working groups that Open Knowledge has in lots of different areas, from open education, open government, open spending, open GLAM, open hardware, so a whole series that we've got there. Today's call, as I mentioned, is a little different from normal calls, and we're having a meta community session, or an open session, which is very exciting. This came up as a suggestion at the last working group, so we're following through with that, and we've got lots and lots of different people working in the open education space, and we're out here to complement and support each other. So we thought it would be great to have an opportunity for all the different groups to introduce themselves. So the way we're going to do it today is everybody's going to have about 4 minutes due to the number of people here, and we're going to introduce yourself, talk about your group, talk about what the group is, who the audience of the group is, when it meets, whether it's online or offline, and its unique selling points, so really how it's different from other groups that are available. And I think what we'll do is timing you, so you get your 4-minute slot, and in less we can always have a quick question. But we can then move on to some questions at the end, and we can talk about some of the challenges of community building and how or sort of anything that they want to share about running their group. So without further ado, because we have a very strict time schedule, we have David Kernaghan from OER Discuss to go first. I see that David is there, so I will mute myself, and then David can go ahead with his 4 minutes, and I'll start timing. Okay, David, are you there?
Hello. Can you hear me there? I'm hoping so. Hi, I'm David Kernaghan. I work for JISC as a senior co-design manager. I've been responsible for various programs and projects within JISC, and one of the things that I did was the UK OER program that was run jointly with the Higher Education Academy. Obviously, I can see a few faces on this call that were quite closely involved. I won't embarrass them by mentioning them, but out of this funded call, we found we were starting to build a community. Now, this was a good thing for a number of reasons, actually, during the funded program. But what to me is interesting is what happened afterwards. OER Discuss is a mailing list on JISC Mail. I'm also linking in activity around the long-lived UK OER hashtag that you've probably seen, and the UK OER Twitter feed. It's become almost quite a low velocity list. There's not lots of messages, but what it is, it encompasses pretty much everybody that is working on or interested in OER in the UK. Whereas you might not even get a single message for a week or so, just suddenly it can kick itself into life, and you get some actually really rather nuanced discussion. I think what makes it different from the other lists is it's primarily focused around practitioners. It's very practical, it's very hands-on. Obviously, it's primarily focused around the UK, and it does tend to be a very historically informed, culturally informed perspective on UK OER. These are people that have been around the area in the main for a long time. They've done a lot of work and are able to answer all kinds of questions, point to all kinds of obscure documents. The Twitter community kind of adds to this. I know a few people keep it as a column on their tweet deck just because they know every day or so something interesting will happen and they'd like to be involved in it. And I also run the UKOER Twitter account, which attempts to highlight interesting things or things of interest to the UKOER community, and occasionally tweets that UKOER is in fact for life. So that's basically that. Any questions or points other people would like to make? I will mute my microphone now. And
any quick questions, Dave?
Hi, this is Lorna here. Not a question, but just a comment that I was going to say to David. Do you want me to post the link to the discussions on the group list this afternoon? David asked the question of people on the list, on the OER discuss list, why they found the list useful and valuable. And I think some of the comments that came back in really spoke volumes about how the fact that this community is still really active 3 years now after program funding finished, and I think it's an excellent example of a sustainable open education community.
Brilliant, that's a really worthy comment there, I think. And I think, oh, that's the timer. So yeah, just to say that we will make sure that we take full notes and we share links to everybody's groups afterwards, and make sure we'll kind of everybody can access stuff afterwards. Okay, and the next person up is I think it's Becca. I'm just got to find the list now. Sorry, Becca Khan from P2PU. So fire away, Becca.
Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here and see so many faces of people that I've worked with, or that P2PU has worked with over the years. It really makes me feel quite comforted. In part because P2PU is a completely distributed organization. As an org, we exist of 4.5 staffers, some full-time, some part-time. None of us are in the same continent, let alone the same country at the moment. And so it's always really nice to come into these contexts and find people who are familiar faces. As a bit of background very quickly, P2PU started out as a platform where anyone could host a course about anything. We were trying to model the peer-to-peer networking process using OERs and building learning material around that. In the last 2 years or so, we've kind of shifted, and we're less of a platform now and more of a lab where we run learning experiments with various communities and various partners. And essentially what we have found is that rather than just having a mailing list in a community that tends to continue throughout the existence of the organization or the existence duration of a project, we tend to use a tool called Discourse, which is a forum tool, and we tie that to the specific learning experiments that we do. So, for example, when we did a course which taught people how to remix music in their browser in partnership with NYU, we ran a Discourse installation for that. And what has been really interesting is that those Discourse forums have continued to exist with relatively little community management from us, as places where people who are interested in a particular topic will continue to interact with each other. And so that these courses tend to last beyond the 6 to 8 weeks, which they are usually given in terms of time. Yeah, like Cabel says, we partnered with Creative Commons on the School of Open, which we're really proud of. We've worked with Beck and the OER Hub. She's done fantastic research with us, which is absolutely invaluable. And a couple of the other projects that I thought maybe I'd let you know about, and I'll add these links into the notes afterwards. I've mentioned the music remix course, which we called Play With Your Music, which was very successful. We've just finished a course called Writing for Change, which was really addressing a new community for us. We've tended to work with what I suppose you could term gentleman scholars, to use a kind of very gendered phrase, but it's people who have spare time, who tend to be quite technically savvy and comfortable, and people for whom the notion of OER is very easy to wrap their heads around. This course really worked with non-traditional learners, people who are trying to get college accreditation. And we're about to release a report. I'll put the link to that in so people can have a look and see what happened there. It's been a real shift for us to work with communities for whom things like Google Docs are not a given. And so we really had to rethink how we structure our OER offerings to suit the needs of those communities. And the essential upshot being that a lot of the tools are not particularly friendly. So we're working on new ways to approach that. But I think that's probably my time. So
Becky, you have a few seconds left, but I just wondered if you wanted to mention the Open Coalition, because we were hoping to have someone from Wikipedia here, but we haven't managed to get them, so I just thought that might be useful.
Oh, yeah. So another project that I'm involved in is the Open Coalition, which I think is a really interesting project to discuss in this context. The Open Coalition is a very loose affiliation of organizations working in the open space. At the moment, we're being housed by Wikimedia UK, who very generously have given us the seed funding to get the project started and the opportunity to have desk space in their offices in London. The coalition really has two roles. The first role is to help organizations who want to introduce open working practices into their day-to-day working orientation. So that can be anything from, helping people understand open licensing or helping people understand the ideas of open governance, in an attempt mostly to help people avoid what we are becoming aware of as a kind of tendency to open washing, when people will talk about things being open when they really aren't particularly open at all. So that's the one piece of work that we do. The other piece of work is working with people within open organizations. There is a sense, I think, amongst many people who've been involved in the open movement for a while, that while we're very good at talking the talk, sometimes it's a lot harder to walk the walk. And so to introduce open practices into our day-to-day work can be very difficult. So I'm happy to answer questions about that when there's more time.
Thank you. Oh, this is really harsh, telling people to stop. But yeah, another amazing organisation. Okay, I think we have next Stefan Dietz from W3C Open Linked Education Group. So Stefan, are you there?
Yep, I'm there. So everyone can hear me? Okay, perfect. Let's make use of my 4 minutes. So first of all, hi everyone, and thanks to Marike for organizing this call. It's actually quite interesting to see how many working groups there are out there, which is apparently quite a lot. So I'm going to talk about the W3C Linked Open Education Working Group, and I actually have 2 slides which I wanted to share, so you don't have to look at my face all the time. Let's see if I get that going.
It's the green button on the left-hand
side.
Yeah,
apparently it's just not showing up. Okay, anyway, let's drop the slides then, since we have limited time anyway. So just to briefly say, so the working group is basically existing since quite some time. It was kickstarted by Madi Solomon, who's also in the chat. So feel free to interrupt me, Madi, whenever you feel it's appropriate or makes sense to add something which I missed. So it has been kickstarted by Madi last year, I think. Then it has become pretty quiet, and in the last months or so, we sort of have basically joined forces. So right now it's basically chaired by myself. So my name is Stefan Dietz again. I'm from the FRACE Research Center in Hanover. Mathieu Dakar from the Open University in the UK is one of the co-chairs, and Madi, of course, from Pearson Education. And the main topic, and that's probably becoming quite obvious when you look at the names of the chairs, is linked data and education. So that has been one of the biggest, let's say, work or topic areas for particularly Mathieu and myself, and Madi as well, in the last years or so. So there is a very reasonably large community out there working on this topic as well, and many of those activities we actually had been involved in. The main idea of the group was basically to have a forum to bring together everyone working in this area. So linked data in particular applied in educational context. So here there are many, let's say, very obvious things. So there's a very large community working, for instance, on sharing educational resources by using linked data principles, or in particular mentioning, for instance, the linked universities movement. So basically universities trying to release their information about courses, experts, projects, whatever is going on at the university according to linked data principles. So there's lots of more going on. And in most of these initiatives, so in fact, there are things like linkededucation.org, linkeduniversities.org, and these kinds of, let's say, earlier initiatives, which we've also been involved in. I also pasted the link to the group in case you're interested. Have a closer look at the charter, which is described there. One fairly prominent, more recent activity of the last two or 3 years, roughly, has been, for instance, the Linked Up project, where we also worked, for instance, with Marika and many other stakeholders in the area to try gathering, in particular, data sets. And one of these activities has been, for instance, our Linked Up dataset catalog. So this is one of the central ideas to basically collect best practices, collect vocabularies, collect schemas, and in particular also collect useful data sets. So we have basically these provided by the community, for the community, and basically making these things available for others to, of course, follow similar principles, but also to basically reuse the data, let's say, in case you want to build any applications, in case you want to let's say, enrich your own data sources with external data sets. So for those who are not familiar with linked data, it's basically the main idea really to make data as accessible as possible for others to actually reusing data. And I think that's one of the most prominent challenges when you think about open education and open educational resources. And that's in principle what the community group is meant to do. And I think my time is up.
Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, I think, thank you very much, Stefan. I think your group's a really nice example of an overlap between different areas and focusing on kind of new opportunities for open education, which I think is really exciting. Okay, next up we have Alistair from the Open Ed Special Interest Group from ALT-C, or Alt Learning. So, Alistair, are you all ready? Ready to go? Alistair? I think you may be muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
You can. Okay, sorry. Right. Okay. Yes. Just to clarify, the Special Interest Group is part of the Association for Learning Technology. ALT-C is just the Association for Learning Technology's annual conference. So the Special Interest Group has 140 members at the moment, which operates primarily via a JISC group, but does have occasional face-to-face meetings at events, and roughly every 2 months there's a webinar. And I'll say something about those in just a moment. In terms of the membership, there is some overlap with OER Discuss that David mentioned earlier, but it's definitely a different feel of group. It's a group where there are a lot of newbies to open education, people who are very keen to learn, and the program of webinars that we've put on this year has kind of reflected that. So it's been very much a sharing of expertise. We've had things on the use of open education video, developing staff development events for open education, and the one that's actually coming up on Thursday of this week is around inclusion issues. How far has the open education movement genuinely delivered on the promise to make education more widely accessible to those who wouldn't otherwise be able to benefit from it? I guess another important thing to say about this is that the OER conferences, OER 13, 14 and 15 and so on, are now very closely linked with the Association for Learning Technology, and OER 15 is in Cardiff in April, which many of you will know, and I guess the OER SIG is the sort of glue between the conference committees and ALT itself. And I'll just put in one very topical issue, which is that there are no chairs so far appointed for OER 2016, and a call for chairs has formally come out from ALT, because we're kind of managing that. And I think it really is quite important that we maintain the momentum of these conferences and seek a couple of people who would be interested in chairing. But that's a sort of a side issue. The OER SIG of the Association for Learning Technology exists 140 members, and thank you for inviting me along today.
Okay, brilliant. And in time, does anyone have any quick questions for Alistair? And I think just to say, it's really useful to say what country you're coming from. So a couple of the people at the beginning, I think, are coming from maybe from a UK perspective. Stefan's group was definitely a global group, and Becca is a global group. But yeah, it's just useful to say what country you're coming from, though. I think a lot of these groups, as we're on the web, anyone can join. It's just interesting to have the focus mentioned. Okay. So next up we have Beck Pitt from the OER Research Hub. So Beck, are you ready to go?
Yeah, hi, and thanks so much, Marika, for inviting us to participate in the call. It's really great to be here. I'm going to put up a couple of links there in the Etherpad as well for you guys to check out if you want. As Marika mentioned, my name is Beck Pitt. I'm a researcher working on the OER Research Hub. We're a Hewlett-funded project. We've been around for about 2 years, and we're looking at the impact of open educational resources on learning and teaching around the world. Our research, we have a kind of open research, open collaboration model. We work across with organisations, projects, and initiatives around the world, including Peter, for you, and Becca, thanks so much for your kind words earlier. We also work with people like OpenStax, BC Campus. We do some work with the Flip Learning Network, the TESS India project, and others. We work across 4 sectors: higher education, college, K-12, and informal learning. And our research is structured by 11 hypotheses. So we kind of look at student performance and satisfaction, and then also where open is making a difference. But then there's a range of other kind of hypotheses that we look at, including student savings and what motivates informal learners, for example, to use OER, for example. We've got one of the links that I've put up there is to our map, where we kind of curate and put evidence, curate evidence that's out there about the impact of OER, but then also put the evidence that we ourselves from our research and make it available in the open. We've just published a report in November last year, which kind of gives you a lot of the kind of findings to date. We also blog, as an open research project, we kind of blog about our research as we go along. So there's a lot of stuff on the website as well. But if you go to the first link in the chat box, you should find a link to our report. So I'd be really interested for anyone's feedback and thoughts about that. And I think that's about it. So yeah, that's great. If anyone's got any questions or anything else that they wanted to add.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you, Beck. Does anyone have any questions? It's becoming a bit, it's mayhem trying to keep up with all the comments and all the questions and the timing, which I keep forgetting to do. Does anyone have any questions at this stage, or want to observations, or jump in at this point? Now is your chance, or shall we crack on? It's just too exciting.
If there's anything, just shoot us an email or a tweet or something, and that's great. Thanks everyone for your listening.
Thanks, Beck. Okay, I think next on the list we have Greg Wilson from Software Carpentry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Right, I'm going to unmute.
Okay, thank you. Software Carpentry was founded in 1998 as a training course at Los Alamos National Laboratory. Our mission initially was to help scientists and engineers who were programming badly learn how to program better. Because we discovered that giving a supercomputer to the average scientist is rather like giving a Formula One racing car to the average 16-year-old, and the crash rate is similar. We've grown since then, particularly since a reboot in 2010. I posted some links into the chat area. We've now got over 280 certified instructors in 25 countries, and last year we ran 130 events for about 4,500 people. The more interesting thing from the OER point of view, though, is we use GitHub for development of our lessons. A lot of, somebody earlier commented about open washing, and a lot of what we see being called open educational resources is still one author in a broadcast model. And if you're lucky, you're allowed to mail in errata. What we've done is put all of our lessons up on GitHub, and we've had over 130 contributors in the last 12 months. People coming in, tweaking, fixing things the way they would with open source software. And there's a lot of bumps along that road, but it's been a really interesting experiment. I think the other thing that we've done that's turned out to be more interesting than expected is running an online instructor training program. It's not enough to tell people be open, you have to show them how to do it. So we run a training course several times a year in which we give people some basic ideas about educational psychology and instructional design so that they'll understand why open is better. I think that if you understand research-based teaching practices, you'll then understand and value openness more because you'll see that it's better. And we've got 110 people starting that class next week. We're already waitlisted for the one in the fall. It's taking up a lot of time, but it's one of the things that's helped us grow and help raise awareness of the value of these things. I don't know what else I could tell you. Our audience is still primarily scientists and engineers. We're starting to reach out to digital humanities, librarians. We're hoping to do a workshop at the Haystack Conference in May, which will be our first big push into the digital humanities. And we're looking to borrow ideas from as many people as we can meet.
Thank you, Greg. Wow. That sounds amazing, the stuff that you're doing, actually. And really kind of something definitely that I think we could all benefit from getting more involved in the kind of practitioner stuff. And yeah, really exciting.
Do I have 1 minute left to ask a question of the panel?
You certainly can.
Sure. This has come up with increasing frequency over the last 12 months. I think most people now regard editing an article on Wikipedia as normal. It doesn't seem strange or weird that you can make a small contribution to the greater public knowledge. Why have attempts to build lessons that way not succeeded? Why have things like Lessonopedia and Coursepedia not taken off with the general public in the way that Wikipedia did? Right now, today in Ontario, there are probably 1,000 school teachers making up their own notes on, I don't know, the history of Canadian unification, right? Or basic calculus, or English grammar. Teachers don't seem to collaborate nearly as much on the construction of teaching materials as programmers now do on software through sites like SourceForge and GitHub, or the way that the whole species does on knowledge, at least in English, with Wikipedia. And I don't understand why it hasn't caught on in teaching, why mass collaboration on construction is still odd. And if people have insight into that, I'd be very grateful.
Well, that's a big question. And yeah, an amazing question, and something I will definitely be thinking about this Thursday when I'm attending an event in Leicester, which is around getting teachers to use open education resources. And I think it's the first of its kind in the UK, and we're really heading in some exciting territory. And for me, it's a really big thing is about getting people to actually use this stuff. So I think if we can all think on that for a little while, and we can maybe come back to it at the end, if that's okay. Just because I want to make sure everybody gets the opportunity to speak. So next up we have Cable Green from Creative Commons, who's going to talk about the Open Policy Network. Cable.
Hi everybody. First, I'm excited. This is really great. I think we should do a lot more of these. Second, I hope to see all of you at OER 15 in Wales. I'm excited. It's my first time to come to an OER 13, 14, 15 conference, so I'm excited to be there and hope to see you all. So I'm going to talk about two things, Open Policy Network and the Institute for Open Leadership, and the second is a project of the first. But both of these have a common theme, and that is open policy. So policy, as we all know, is a major lever that we can pull around open to both move money to open for production, professional development, reuse, release time, support for faculty and teachers, all sorts of reasons to have money, to have sustainability around projects. And what both of these projects are about is to move the default to open on funding from anybody that has money. So the idea here is that if governments are giving out grants, if foundations are giving out grants, that the products of those grants should be openly licensed by default. And so some of the catchphrases around this are publicly funded resources should be openly licensed. And so specifically what we're trying to get at is that all publicly funded or foundation or philanthropic funded education and research resources should be openly licensed, and specifically what we mean is all the content that's produced should be under a CC BY or similar attribution-only license, and that all of the data should be under CC0 or a similar ODB license, so that all the data is in the public domain. So two big reasons for doing this, right? One is that we move the money, and the second is that we change the air in which the environment, in which learning happens. So I think that partially gets to the question about why aren't we using GitHub to co-create, because the environment that we're in doesn't reward, talk about, provide professional development around co-creation in shared spaces like GitHub, although I completely agree we should. So to the projects, I've provided the links. The Open Policy Network is a coalition, and if you haven't joined, please do. There's no cost to join. These are open orgs from around the world who are committed to this idea that publicly funded resources ought to be openly licensed, and that we agree to work together to provide that common advice to funders around the world, help them adopt, write, implement, and we support them in their open policies. And we collectively agree as a network never to let an open policy opportunity pass us by. The network just received a significant amount of funding to launch its work plan, and we'll be giving out sub-grants to OPN members coming up in the next few months. So if you want to get some money to do some great work around open policy, join the Open Policy Network. The second project, which is a major project of the Open Policy Network, is called the Institute for Open Leadership. The idea here is that it's great that we all are on this call, but we don't need just us. We need 10,000 of us who are open policy experts and can go out and do this kind of work. So we put out a call for global experts. We got almost 100 applications. We ended up being able to fund 14 fellows from 12 countries around the world. You'll see them on that list. We brought them to San Francisco 2 weeks ago. The second institute will be outside of North America, very likely in Eastern Europe, maybe in Southeast Asia, in end of 2015, early 2016, where we will be recruiting a new round of mentors and fellows and educating the next generation of open policy leaders.
Thank you very much, Cable. And I like Dave's comment on your interior decoration. Yeah, the smartest room, you win the smartest room award. Fantastic. And I think we'll all be going and having a look at some of the grant funding that you'll be giving out as the part of the Open Policy Network, definitely. Okay, next up we have Antonio Martinez Arboleda from SCORE Fellows. Is Antonio there, or is anyone there from SCORE? No? I didn't think thought I saw anybody there from SCORE. Okay, we can maybe share some more about SCORE later on, which I know that the SCORE Fellowship Group has actually disbanded as such, but there was some really, really interesting discussions about the work they've done, so hopefully we'll be able to share something later about what they do. Okay, next up on the list we have Lorna, who is representing CETUS and Open Scotland, so with the two hats on. So Lorna, you're definitely there, aren't you?
I am indeed. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, so CETUS are a technology advisory service, and we're based here in the UK, though we work internationally. My colleague Phil Barker is also on the call, and Phil and I are based here in Scotland. CETUS is the Centre for Education Technology and Interoperability Standards. We've been operational for about 12 years now, and we work right across all aspects of open education technology, whether it's open standards, open educational resources, open source software, technology for open education, really the full raft of things. Phil and I in particular have a background in open education standards for describing resources, and we recently did some work with Cable at Creative Commons on the Learning Resource Metadata Initiative. Thank you very much, Cable, there in the chat window. And we've taken that work forward with Dublin Core, so that's one strand of our open education activity. A lot of the open education work we do in CETUS isn't directly funded. It's very much become part of our practice, and it stretches right back to the UK OER programme, which David Kernahan mentioned. CETUS provided the technology support and strategy for the UK OER programme over 3 years. So it's really great to see that that's still having an impact. One of the areas that Mariki mentioned that we're very active in at the moment is the Open Scotland initiative, and to some extent this is very typical of the kind of initiative that CETUS gets involved in. Open Scotland is an unfunded voluntary initiative. It's cross-sector and it aims to raise awareness of open education, to encourage the sharing of open educational resources and explore the potential of open policy and practice to benefit all sectors of education across Scotland. So CETUS is the primary mover behind the Open Scotland initiative, but we also have input from ALT, who we've heard about earlier on. We used to have input from a group called Just RSC Scotland, who are now sadly no longer with us, and we work together to try and, as I said, promote the benefits of open education within Scotland. And one of the things that we've done is we have drafted something called the Scottish Open Education Declaration, and this is based on the Paris OER Declaration, but we've widened the scope, so rather than focusing specifically on open educational resources, it focuses on open education practice more widely. Now, this is not a formal policy document that's been adopted by the Scottish Government, for example, but what we are hoping is that it will act as a focal point for discussions and for raising awareness of the benefits of open education within Scotland. And it's on the web as an open draft. I think I've already posted the URL there. So anyone who is interested in open education policy or open education practice, would very much encourage you to have a look, get involved, comment. If it's useful to you, please take it away. Of course, it's licensed under a Creative Commons license. So that's a very swift overview of some of CETUS open education activities. If anyone wants to chip anything else in, Phil, David, anyone else, now's your chance. I'll mute my mic.
You've obviously done a grand job, Lorna. Phil, nobody?
I silenced everyone.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so I think next up we have Victoria Vlad from I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to say this correctly. Scola Mia. Victoria.
Hi. I almost thought you were going to say Scotland. Victoria from Scotland. Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Vlad. I work with the Independent Think Tank Expert Group. It's based in Chisinau, Moldova. And it's really great to learn about all the initiatives and the groups that are working in open education. I wish we had that much interest here in Moldova. But I'll shortly tell you about the work we started, and I'll be sharing my screen. Can everybody hear me okay? Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you, Victoria.
Yes, okay, sounds good. So very shortly, tell you about the expert group. It's a think tank. It's non-governmental and non-for-profit. Specialized in economic and policy research. And some of our projects start with budgetstories.md. This is a website with infographics where we analyzed education including and took all kinds of open data resources and put out infographics about the largest spending sectors in the economy, including education. But today I'll be telling you shortly about the social accountability for the education reform of Moldova and how open education relates to this project. It is a project about opening data at the local level, opening data on budgets, on performance, and discussing the school budgets, particularly in public hearings organized at the school level. So far, we've started with opening up budgets for all schools in Moldova. So last year in April, we were able to open up some data with the support of the Ministry of Education, and it is great to have them on board. Now the largest challenge is to grow this interest, and not only in the center of the country, but all around. We've used some of the Open Knowledge Foundation tools, such as the tree map on open spending, to visualize some of the investment data in schools, for example, and make it more accessible to users. And we've also opened up sets of data. We've opened data about the budget and about school performance investments. We put it up there for the download of any interested person. And this taking into account the challenges of the education sector in Moldova, excess spaces, unused buildings, high cost and low performance. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, we have the support of the government. The government is engaged in this in a reform, and it seeks to improve the quality of education, has various mechanisms such as per student based financing nationwide. In this project, it comes to support the reform by opening data and engaging communities in the dialogue at the local level and at the national level. The project in numbers, it's a 5-year initiative. It is planned for working in 100 schools, working with 100 local groups that we train to request data and work with data about their schools. It is about using social accountability tools, working with 5 regional partners, geo-mapping all the schools in the country, which we've already done and will soon launch the website. And also it is about at least 5,000 citizens directly involved in the budget dialogue. So this was my short presentation, and I'd love to continue the talk.
Thank you, Victoria. Wow, that sounds amazing. I'd love to hear more about that at some point. Actually, I think we maybe could get in touch and do another session on that, because it sounds like there's a lot of interesting stuff there, especially around open data for open knowledge. That was great. Okay, next up we have Christian from ICOR. I don't know if Christian's there, but I did see someone talking about ICOR at one point. So, Babs, are you there representing ICOR?
Well, first of all, I hope that you can hear me now.
It's Christian. Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, I'm here to speak about ICOR, but maybe I can just highlight one of more than 20 projects that we are also involved in, because that is also related to the question from Greg. That is Open Discovery Space, and Open Discovery Space is about connecting teachers, and currently we are doing that together with 2,000 schools in 28 countries all across Europe, and we are now involving 10,000 teachers, not in training but in showcasing them how open education can work by introducing good practices from other teachers to the participating teachers in our webinars, in our summer schools, winter schools. We have any kind of events that you can imagine and that we are offering all for free. And that's the way how teachers are really love to see what others are doing and then adapting it to their specific needs. And we are doing that in several hundreds of online communities at all scales that they can set up. That is about Open Discovery Space, and it's ongoing. If you're interested in that, that's the biggest open education initiative by the European Commission for the school sector in all Europe. Well, I want to speak about ICOR, the International Community for Open Research and Open Education that we have established 1.5 years ago as a global initiative. And we have found out that there is a specific need to combine open research and open education, because open researchers are doing great job, are doing great research, they are publishing the research, and then it is. And the educators and the teachers in particular in schools have no clue about what is available as open educational resources, as results from open research. We have so many open educational resources. We have done a harvesting among the 17 biggest repositories, open repositories in the fields of agriculture. And it turned out that we could connect more than 70 millions of open educational resources. But if we show the teachers them, they tell us We have never seen that before. We did not know that. And that's why we have to connect open research and open education. And ICOR is not only for promoting that, but also to push the people to the way that we can re-establish openness as a default, as it was 50, 60 years ago. Remember, there was a time where openness was the default. If there was a publication, then you could use it without any conflict of copyright. Even if somebody was stating a clear copyright statement, then you're not allowed to do that. But in any other cases, you could use everything for free and openly. That's what we have to re-establish, to achieve again. That's why ICOR is now joining forces with other communities as well as organizations, in particular with UNESCO and ICDE and Open Education Consortium, the former OCWT, and we would also be very pleased to have you on board, that we can join forces for common activities. We are organizing now an annual conference, that is the Link conference that we have established 5 years ago, and we would be very pleased to have a cooperation and collaboration with all of you to go forward to our common vision and goal of open learning by using and introducing and adapting, in particular adapting open educational resources for open educational practices.
Thank you very much, Christian. That's great. I think we only have one more speaker left, and then we can have a 10-minute discussion on about community building in this space. We have Mark Bogonovich from Open Words. Hopefully you're still there, Mark. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Brilliant.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Hello?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, fantastic. I'm a little nervous, folks. It's really my first time speaking with a group like this. So let me tell you what we're doing. So I'm with OpenWords. You can find us at openwords.com and openwords.org. OpenWords is a startup in the United States. So what exactly are we doing? What are we? You can think of us like this. OpenWords is a foreign language learning mobile app for the world's open language data. Now, does that make sense? So that would be actually like Duolingo or Rosetta Stone, but all of the content is open source. So there's a very big problem. Over half the world speaks languages with fewer than 50 million native speakers, and these usually get ignored by most, mobile app developers. And so what are we doing for this? Well, essentially, because we use open data, we're able to sit on top of all the open data that's been, open repositories of language data that have been made in the past decade. So we can rapidly scale that data and produce content for languages like, Kannada or Swahili. So, for example, we take a lot of our data from the Wikimedia, specifically the Wiktionary. We've already mined most of the data in that repository, and there's over 1,000 languages that we have content for. And so, obviously, of course, we really want to reach out with Wikimedia in particular, and we want them to know about us because basically, OpenWords is providing a language learning user experience or front end to their data and to other open repositories. So we are also, so we are actually a for-profit company, and we've got revenue models, and we want to use those revenue models, for example, to improve the data and reward people financially for working on particular languages. So, for example, we've gone through the entire Farsi database of, so that'd be Iranian language, Farsi database of the Wiktionary, and we've checked for errors. And so we can both build on and improve the quality of the open resources. And so that's what we are. If you have any questions, please let me know. Again, I'm going to write down the link here, openwords.com, and openwords.org has our database.
Thank you very much, Mark. And what people who are watching this, because there are actually quite a few people watching this, and won't get to see is there's a lot of collaboration going on in our chat here, and people getting to meet each other and hopefully taking things further, which is really, really amazing stuff. So I just wanted to say, we did have Dennis. Did you want to speak about anything at all? Because you were in the audience or in the hangout, and I wasn't sure whether you wanted to chat about your group or you're just here for the ride.
Well, I can say a few words if you wish, but about the project. Yeah, we've been inspired by Mauricio's work and worked on development a short course for Ireland for teaching introduction to computer science here in Ireland. So there was a lot of effort was put in this last year, and unfortunately, the Irish government didn't notice, and right now we parked this project. There is no time and resources to work on this at the moment. But one of the most interesting projects I've been involved last year, we've been involving school children to help to map Lesotho. Lesotho is a mountainous kingdom in the middle of South Africa. And we've been working, helping Lesotho to put it on OpenStreetMaps. So that's an ongoing project, and schools and teachers has been involved in it. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And yeah, I will make sure that all these notes are fully typed up, and we have a really good blog post which gives links to all this amazing stuff that people come up with. We've only got about 7 minutes left, and as you can see, it's getting a bit dark where I am. But I just wondered whether people wanted to share any thoughts about building a community. And I know there was actually a session on this at OER 14 last year, just about kind of the difficulties around building a community and whether you should how you bring people together and get people to work together, and whether you should be bringing people together or whether these things should naturally sort of just happen. Just whether anybody had any thoughts on getting people on board, or because I still face this very much as a challenge as part of this Open Education Working Group, is how do you bring people in, new people? How do you get people to share what they're doing? How do you get people to take on responsibility? So I'd be really interested in hearing people's thoughts on this. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Somebody must have.
I think the main issue, Maike, is that we have to talk to people that are not in our circles here. And that's why I was also interested to come here, because most of you I don't know. I have not talking before to you before, and that's why I think that is most important. But you are already all convinced about open education and open educational resources. That's why that is not my target group. My target group are the people out there, just to address the masses and to make them aware that there are different ways, different visions that we can go for the future, and just to showcase them what is possible and happening. That is something that is sometimes convincing people.
So how do you bring people from the real world into our open education bubble, just out of interest? Any ideas?
I'm not bringing them into the bubble. I'm going to them. I have to go to them.
That's the key there. You're right. Yeah, we need to move out of our bubble and yeah, and go to them. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on community building? Okay, so I mean, there's some interesting discussion going on the side about sort of turning learners into helpers, and I know this is stuff that Cadel was sort of touching on earlier when they were talking about championing people and putting them in different spaces and getting them to be the ones to inspire people. Does anybody want to say anything about that?
I certainly think, hi Marika, it's Lorna here. I certainly think it's crucial for, you know, those of us who have been involved in the open education space for some time to sort of disseminate our experience out the way in very sort of practical terms. And I think we quite often, projects and initiatives in the open education space can move quite fast, and I think it's quite easy for, you know, some real gains that we've made to get slightly left behind, and I do wonder sometimes if that does happen a bit. But also I noticed, you know, in the chat window you yourself said, you know, sustainability and funding for open education initiatives can be a difficult task to address. I mean, within CETUS we find that, you know, sometimes we are actively funded to pursue various open education initiatives, other times we're not, and we've tried to make sure that we embed open practice in our work more generally, but that's not always easy for people to do. So I guess the thing is, you know, how do we help to support the community and disseminate the message during lean times when perhaps there isn't so much funding or resource available?
Yeah, very well put. Yes, I mean, for example, technically I'm not funded to work on open education anymore, but you know, the open knowledge still supports this very much, and I'm trying to, I see open education as feeding into all the various other activities I do anyway. And anybody else want to share any thoughts? We all tapped now. We have 3 minutes left. Sorry. Christian.
Okay, Marika, then it's again me, if you don't mind. Because Cable has made a very exciting proposal, just asking for updates in the future. And I think that is something that we in the bubble also need, the connection. And that's why, as you know, we have established in ICOR 2 working groups just for collection all the materials and all the other initiatives, just to point to everybody else, as we want to be also such kind of a melting pot. And I think we have a lot of other initiatives who could also take part in that and also be responsible for such a connectivity. And that is something that we should do in our bubble, that nothing is going in parallel without any joint forces, but we have to bring our resources together, because otherwise we are not so many. That's why it must be best to do it together.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to get Becca, who I think is still there, to share with you the ideas around the Open Coalition. So it's very much the similar idea, which is about bringing people together in a united force working in this area. So hopefully, at least this working group can be a way to do that. Okay, we've got 1 minute left. Any final thoughts for the day? Something people would like to end on? Hopefully you found it useful today. It's been a bit hectic, but I think it's really been it's been a great opportunity. I was really surprised at how many people wanted to come forward. There were also lots of people who wanted to attend who unfortunately couldn't make it, and I'll make sure I share the notes and information that they've sent to me. You know, people from POER Up and people from Wikimedia and all sorts of other people who are really keen to come. So, you know, there are lots more groups out there for us to hear from. And yeah, thank you very much for coming. And hopefully we shall stay in touch and we shall hear more from all of you in the future. So thank you very much to everybody. Thanks for coming along and talking today. Thank you. Thanks.
Marie, maybe one last sentence of interest for everybody. There is something that is called World E-Academy that is going to be established, and I'm going tomorrow to Paris to the UNESCO and next week to the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, and that is something maybe that could also be interesting as such a melting pot at the United Nations for open education resources under strict open policy.
Thank you. Thanks so much to everybody. I'm going to stop broadcasting now, and thanks very much for coming along. I'm going to make sure I capture all the chat and share this all with you. Thanks everybody. Bye.